Presented by Caltech.
Hello, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the Caltech campus. I'm Tom Rosenbaum, president of Caltech, and it's wonderful to have you here in the real audience, let me say, and those of you who are joining us virtually for this kickoff to Engineers Week. In The Martian, which the movie that actually opens tomorrow, and I won't ruin it for you, Matt Damon talks about how what he's doing is solving one problem at a time, solving one problem, moving to the next one, solving that problem. And that's really all about what it is like to be a scientist and an engineer. It's an extraordinary adventure and one that this planet needs with our challenges in health, in climate, in water, in energy. We need people with the sensibility who want to change the world, who want to improve the lives of human beings in the world. And it's engineers who play that incredible role. We need everybody who has this desire, who has the talent, the scientific and engineering talents, to get involved and to continue and to become those kind of people who will change the world for us and for our children and our grandchildren. For Caltech, we're in the people business. We are the place where we want to attract people with these great ideas, with this desire to change the world. And unless we are attractive to everyone from any background, from any orientation, who is interested in solving these problems, we will not get the best people in the world, which is the importance of diversity, which is the fundamental value that we want to espouse in terms of being the locus for these sorts of activities. So thank you for joining us to talk about how we can get there, about the excitement of engineering, and also about how we can cast our net as broadly as possible and make sure that those who start out with these interests continue in these interests and change the world. To that end, we have an enormously distinguished panel who you will hear for their views, and I will turn it over to the chair of the panel, the chair of the Engineering and Applied Science Division here at Caltech, the Johnny Goode Professor of Aerospace and Mechanical Engineering, and an expert on how to break things, Ravi Ravichandran.
Thank you, President Rosenbaum, for your opening remarks. Your remarks sets the stage very nicely for the panel discussion today. I would also like to welcome the audience here, as well as our virtual audience, which is over 1,000 all over North America and the world. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished panel members in alphabetical order. Dominica Samaki is a professor of mechanical and civil engineering at Caltech. Her research combines geotechnical engineering, computational mechanics, and structural dynamics to study natural ground surface features and man-made geotechnical systems, including dams, bridges, buildings, and offshore structures. Aileen Cheng is a senior at Caltech, majoring in bioengineering and minoring in computer science. She is the president of Society of Women Engineers at Caltech, as well as president of the Pre-Meds Association and a board member of the Caltech Y. Over the summer, she interned at CalImmune, a company focused on creating a cure for AIDS. She plans on continuing to work in biotech for a year before going to medical school. Sandy Magnus is the executive director of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. AIAA is the world's largest technical society dedicated to global aerospace profession. Sandy is an engineer and a NASA astronaut. She has been to the space station many times and flown in the space shuttle. She returned to Earth with the crew of STS-119 Discovery after having spent 134 days in orbit. Andrew Smart is the Director of Society Programs and Industry Relations for SAE International and is responsible for all technical activities with the engineering communities in the aerospace, automotive, and commercial vehicle sectors. He also serves as Managing Director of the SAE Industry Technologies Consortium. John Tracy is the Chief Technology Officer of the Boeing Company and Senior Vice President of Engineering, Operations, and Technology. In this position, he oversees the development and implementation of Boeing's technology investment strategy and provides strategic direction to functions, business organizations, and initiatives involving more than 100,000 employees. Thank you all for being here, and let's begin with the first question. This year is the 65th anniversary of Engineers Week, and the theme for the year is Engineers Make a World of Difference. Dr. John Tracy, would you like to start us off by reflecting on the theme and how Boeing engineers are making a difference?
Thanks, Ravi. Boeing is going to be 100 years old in 2016. And for the last 100 years, we believe our engineering team has absolutely made a world of difference by creating some of the greatest technological marvels the world has ever seen. Whether it's airplanes that connect people around the world affordably, safely, efficiently in a matter of hours, satellites that allow people to communicate instantaneously around the world, the launch vehicles that put the satellites or people like Sandy into orbit, or the tools that our soldiers use to defend freedom and safely return home. It's the engineers who use the skills of science, technology, and engineering and math, and the scientists to create these things that make the world a better place. And it's not just in the field of aerospace that engineers and scientists make the world a better place. It's in everything you see and touch around you every hour of the day. Whether it's the building we're in, the air conditioner, the medical devices that you see, the television, every single one of those things is created and developed by engineers and scientists. And so to the adults who are listening in today, I ask you if you could do your part to encourage young people out there to understand how engineering can make their lives personally better and make the world a better place. For the students out there, I encourage you to continue to pursue science, technology, engineering, and math so you can be involved in making the world a better place by solving the problems that President Rosenbaum talked about using those skills. It can be so exciting for us on the panel to watch you folks come up with the next great innovation that changes the world and makes it better.
Thank you, John, for highlighting the importance of engaging the greater community and also providing the inspiration for the students to move on into engineering careers. Now I would like to ask Professor Domniki Asimaki to speak about engineering outreach and in particular about our recent work in Nepal.
Thank you, Ravi. So the earthquake magnitude 7.8 that happened in April in Nepal was not a surprise to seismologists who have been studying the seismicity of the Himalayas. It was, however, a surprise for engineers because it didn't cause as much damage as we expected it to cause in a country that has limited resources and building codes that are weakly enforced, if at all. So what happened in Kathmandu, and why is it important for us to understand why damage didn't happen half the world around? Imagine that buildings are like guitar strings, and if you pluck them right, they resonate and they have a likelihood to collapse. Now, the combination of geology and source effect in Kathmandu was such that the shaking was far away from the pitch, from the resonant frequency of the buildings, 1- and 2-story buildings in Kathmandu. However, the geology of Kathmandu is very similar to the geology of Los Angeles and of Oregon and of Sacramento. And had that shaking happened here, the downtown Los Angeles skyscrapers would have been a lot more challenged than the 2-story buildings in Kathmandu. So it is important for us to understand why damage didn't happen in Kathmandu, because that helps us improve our understanding of how buildings in LA are going to perform in future earthquakes. And by understanding that, we can help educate the people of Nepal to prepare them for the next earthquake that might be a lot more catastrophic than the one that just happened, and also help them build safer cities in the future.
Thank you, Domniki, for giving us a global perspective on engineering applications. This helps set the stage for later in today's discussion about a new global initiative which we will be discussing. Also, it is obvious that, Domniki, that you are a role model in engineering. This year's Girl Day is kicking off a campaign called Role Models, Bring It Out. Dr. Sandy Magnus, can you tell us a bit more about this campaign?
Excellent. I would love to, but before I get started, I'd like to say how exciting it is and wonderful it is to see so many students in the room who are studying engineering in high school. Because when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be an astronaut. I had no idea how I was going to get there. I didn't know engineering existed. I latched on to physics, which, by the way, was a lot of fun, and I highly encourage people to study physics. But I got to college and discovered engineering, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. I can take the physics, and I can go do stuff with it and build things. And that's the eventual path I ended up going into the astronaut office. And so it's really important that we find ways to bring engineering to the awareness of young people in the elementary and the K through 12 grades, especially, since I'm a woman, focusing on women and showing them, hey, you can do this, and this is what this field is, because you can't pick a field as a career choice if you don't know it exists. And so part of the role model program that we're bringing out for Engineers Week next year is asking all of you on the web, all of you who are engineers, parents, teachers, make a concerted effort to bring the idea and the concepts of engineering to young people. If you're a role model in engineering like Dominique and Aileen and myself and John and Andrew, take a moment and figure out how you can bring your experience and your stories to young people. And so on the Discovery website, you'll find a lot of ideas for how you can do this, some suggestions, some materials. But if every engineer out there picks one day that day during Engineers Week to reach out and tell your stories, you can have a huge impact on opening up the horizons of young people to all the fun things that we do in engineering, and they'll choose, because how could you not, to come into engineering? So check out the Discovery website as Engineers Week approaches.
Thank you, Sandy, for providing ideas as to how to encourage girls to enter engineering, and also creating the future generation of women engineers. I think there are a lot of insights you have provided. So during Engineers Week at Caltech, we also organize events for Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day. Aileen, would you share your experiences with Introduce a Girl to Engineering at Caltech and other mentoring efforts you are involved in?
Sure, thanks, Ravi. So we had Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day last year, and basically what happened was that we had a group of girls from local high school that are actually here in the audience right now, come over and hopefully participate in a day of fun activities that were focused on engineering and science, so they could learn, engineering is actually really cool and helpful. So we first had a morning speaker, Dr. Karina Edmonds, who inspired them about, being a woman in engineering. And then we broke off into two groups, where one group would be with RoboGals, and they would do the Lego Mindstorms. It's basically like an introduction to programming, in which you have like a Lego robot and you code a couple lines of code, and then you plug it in and you see the robot actually move this amount or turn this angle or something like that based on the lines of code that you wrote. So that's supposed to get them interested in computer science and learn that it's not so crazy complicated like you'd see in the movies. It's something they can learn and get better at. And the other group was supposed to do an egg dropping contest. So we had eggs, and we had a couple of materials like styrofoam cups, balloons, things, very ordinary things like that. And these girls got into groups, and they were able to construct some sort of a cover of the egg so that they would drop it from 2 stories high and the egg wouldn't break. And I was really impressed this year because actually most of the girls had intact eggs by the end, so that was really amazing. After that, we split off into lab tours where they got to tour individual labs and just, see science as it's happening right now, cutting edge research. And then we sent them home after some LN2 ice cream. So that was hopefully pretty fun. And hopefully we were able to inspire all the girls, you guys, to think about science and technology and engineering as a future career. Yeah.
Thank you, Aileen, for encouraging the students to enter engineering and be excited about the field. Right? Andrew Stewart, we have heard a lot about mentoring students, and I know SAA International supports these efforts. We have heard even one touch can matter. What advice do you have for those tuning in who may want to volunteer but aren't sure they will be successful?
It's a good question, Ravi. If you're thinking about volunteering, do it. I may be biased because personally I volunteer back as well, and I get a great deal out of it personally. But really there's two types of people, the people that volunteer and the people that should. I think when you go into the classroom or you get involved at the college level, you're so inspired because of the passion of the students, the yearning for knowledge. It's really very addictive. And because of that, as a volunteer, then you just build the whole situation up where you know there's a yearning for knowledge and you have it. And it doesn't have to be so complex. As Aileen says, very complex problems are actually made up of very simple steps. So whether we volunteer within kindergarten or whether you're at the collegiate level, the only difference really is the volume in the classroom. You tend to find that the smaller children, the volume's a little higher. We'll stop there. There's one area I was involved in, what we call speed mentoring, where in fact is musical chairs with a lot of questions and answers. But at the end of the session, the students came out with this huge grin on their face because they learnt so much. But the executives had an even bigger grin on their face because they enjoyed it probably even more, because they were relating what it was like to be, as I am. I'm just a 23-year-old young professional, but I've got about 30 years experience. But that's another story. If you're really interested in engaging with this in terms of volunteering and mentoring, as Sandy said, discovery.org, that's the place to go. You'll find the resources, tips of what to do there. But within SAE, we use these tips, and it's very helpful, is how to engage with the students. People are always a little hesitant at first. Well, what will I say? It's just that, like any relationship, you just got to start with, hi, this is who I am. I'm an engineer. How can I help you? And when you go through that, and it's really developing relationships with the students. And again, you find how much they want to know, and really leading with your passion as an engineer is so important, and giving back to the community. And you've really got to show, as engineers, as John said, the creativity that you bring to however small or however large problem. Everything around you requires engineering and science and math to be involved. And so you make a huge difference. And so creativity, the teamwork that we're involved in terms of engineers, solving problems. But probably more importantly, just making the world, it may sound cliche, but it's absolutely true, just making the world a better and safer place. Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you, Andrew, for the insights and the advice. I think we have a lot to learn about volunteering. I think volunteering is so important in what we do. Now I understand that as part of the 65th anniversary of Engineers Week, the Discovery, Boeing, AAA, SAA International are launching a new program that gets at the global nature of engineering problems and solutions. John, can you tell us more about it?
Sure. The theme of Engineers Week this year is Engineers Make a World of Difference. And the reason that's the theme is because there literally are engineers all around the world making the world a better place. So what we've done is we've created a program that sort of ties the international engineering community together around two key focus areas. One is celebrating the accomplishments of engineers in engineering, and two is encouraging the next generation of innovators to come into this wonderful field with us. Our new program is called the Global Day of the Engineer. It'll be held on 24 February of 2016. And we're asking individuals and organizations to pledge to do 3 things on that day. The first is to celebrate the accomplishments of engineering or a particular engineer. The second is to engage students and encourage them to join this great field and show them how they can make the world a better place. And the third thing we're asking people to do is to use social media to share something about a local engineering feat or accomplishment. So I encourage all of you on the webcast to celebrate the Global Day of the Engineer on 24 February of 2016. And as with the others, you can find all the information you need on discoverye.org.
Thank you, John. What an interesting program with the global perspective. I think it's important to celebrate accomplishments, and this is what inspires, I think, the future students. They can see the real impact on the world. So in the spirit of the Global Day of the Engineer, let us take our remaining minutes and ask each of our panelists to share an engineering accomplishment or solution that stirs your imagination, that our young students in the audience here can think about as they consider how they will make a difference in the future. Sandy?
Well, actually, the first thing that comes to my mind is the International Space Station, because it's a global engineering project, and it's a really complicated global engineering project. It took people from working 16 different countries all over the world. We worked across language barriers, we worked across cultural differences, different approaches to engineering, English system and the metric system. It was a huge, really complicated puzzle to go solve, but here we are in 2015, starting way back 20, 25 years ago, design, built, assembled, and operate. It's really complex. And I'm really excited for all of you who are getting ready to go into engineering, because a lot of the problems facing us as a planet it's really everyone's going to have to work together like this in this international arena. Clean water, how to solve problems with disease, better ways to build buildings to survive earthquakes and other natural disasters, how to be more energy efficient as a planet, how to work with our environment, how to continue our expansion into space. These are all global problems, and they all need engineers. You guys are going to have so much fun. It's just beyond words. But it's going to be challenging. But it's a fun kind of a challenge, because you can see at the end how you can make a difference and how you have made a difference. So I'm really excited for you all.
Thank you, Sandy. Andrew, your thoughts?
If I go to the other extreme, one of the key accomplishments for me as a young engineer was the first part I put into production. When you start with the idea, you go through the concept ideas, you go through the architecture. This is on a vehicle program. You're there with your prototypes. CAD was in its early forms then. I'm not that old. But then when you take the parts, I made it out of cardboard, I did all my stress calcs, etc., got it there, went through prototyping, etc. But it was when you had the production part, going down the production line with the people there who are actually fitting it, and you said afterwards, I did that. I went into production with that, and now people will benefit on the vehicles, they're driving around and everything. I got a great kick out of this. I still do. And that's what just keeps you going. It's just delivering. And going into production was probably one of the key accomplishments for me.
Thank you, Andrew. Domniki?
I think the fact that we have the technology today to do monitoring of natural disasters around the world. We drill holes down to 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers into faults, and we look from space to understand how tectonic plates move, and we build buildings that resist hurricanes and earthquakes and floods. I think engineers always probably dreamed to make the world a better place, but today is actually the technology is there, and it's going to be just the starting point for you guys. So I wish you the best of luck, and it's going to be a fun and exciting travel for you.
Thank you, Domniki. Aileen?
I guess what I'm most fascinated by are biomedical devices that are able to, cure illnesses or extend the life. So a little bit of backstory, I guess. Hepatitis B is very prevalent in Asian countries. And so when I was a kid, when I first discovered that my dad had hepatitis B, I was like, oh no, like I gotta cure him. I was also much younger, but I just looked on the internet, how to cure hepatitis B. And I discovered that there are these labs trying to research ways to have artificial liver devices, which I thought was really fascinating because they were just basically trying to mimic the liver functions, which is really complicated outside of the body, so that people with failing livers could hopefully live that much longer. And so from then, I decided that I wanted to look into engineering ways to help people live longer. And fast forward to now, over the summer, as you know, I worked at CalImmune, which works on curing AIDS, which I did not know was ever going to be possible. And so I guess it's all I could ever hope for in a job, to help cure people, hopefully. So.
Thank you, Aileen. John, your thoughts?
For me, because of where I work, the most exciting thing is powered flight. In a very short amount of time, the span of basically my lifetime, this is 60 odd years, people went from not being able to fly at all, the Wright brothers, to being able to go to the moon safely and return. That's just unbelievable progress. And today we're building the rocket that's going to take us to Mars. So that's very exciting. But what excites me more than that by far is the future and thinking about what you in this room or the students online are going to create. We can't even imagine the great things that you're going to do if you just choose to do them, if you choose to become engineers and scientists and follow your visions on how you can make the world a better place. That's what excites me more than anything.
Thank you, John. So ultimately, engineering is all about creating things which don't exist yet. And I think you are going to be part of that revolution and the innovation which is going to make the world a better place. So I wish you continued success with your quest to becoming engineers, and those in the engineering profession to be even more successful. So that brings our program to a close. Thank you to our guests from Boeing, AAA, SAE International, and Caltech. On behalf of Caltech and Discovery, thank you for joining us, and we wish you great success with your Engineers Week and outreach.